Meg Cabot, When Lightning Strikes, Chapter 11. In the end, of course, it turned out that my dad wasn't the one I ought to have sworn to secrecy. It was Mr. Feeney. I don't know if he thought he could get his hands on that reward money somehow, or if he decided that spilling the beans would make his school district stand out from all the others in Indiana. Like, since it was the school's bleachers I had gotten electrocuted under, that somehow made Ernest Pyle High School special, or what. But anyway, when the town paper hit our front porch that afternoon, the town paper came out at 3 in the afternoon every day, instead of 7 in the morning. So the reporters and everybody don't have to get up early. There was this giant picture of me on the front of it. My very flattering sophomore yearbook picture, in fact, the one which my mom had made me wear one of her hideous homemade dresses, under the headline that read, "Touched by the Finger of God." Have I pointed out that there are more churches in our town than there are fast food restaurants? Southern Indiana is way religious. Anyway, the article went on to describe how I had saved all these kids after being touched by the finger of God, or lightning, as it is called by the secular community. It went on to say that I was just an average student who played third chair flute in the school orchestra, and that on weekends I helped my dad out in his restaurants, which they listed. I knew all this stuff couldn't have come from Mr. Feeney, since he didn't know me all that well. I figured Mr. Goodhart must have something to do with it. And let me tell you, that kind of hurt, you know? I mean, even though he hadn't mentioned anything about the trouble with Douglas or my detention, he sure had mentioned everything else he knew. Isn't there some sort of confidentiality thing with school counselors? I mean, can't they get in trouble for that? But when my dad called Mr. Abramowitz and asked him, he was like, "You can't prove the information came from the counselor. It came from someone at the school, most definitely, but you can't prove it was the counselor." Still, Ruth's dad started putting together a lawsuit aimed at hitting Ernest Pyle High School for slipping the town paper my school photo. That, Mr. Abramowitz said, was an invasion of privacy. He sounded really happy about it. Ruth's dad doesn't get that many interesting cases. Mostly, he just does divorce. My mother was happy about it too. Don't ask me why, but the whole story totally delighted her. She was a hog in heaven. She wanted me to have a press conference in the main dining room at Mastroni's. She kept going on about how much money it would bring into the restaurant, feeding all those out-of-town reporters. She even started picking out dress patterns, right then and there, for what she wanted me to wear to this press conference. I'm telling you, she went mental. I had kind of thought that she'd be all weirded out about it, you know. I mean, considering her, "I just want us to be a normal family" mentality. But that went right out the window when she heard about the rewards. How much? She wanted to know. How much per child? We were eating dinner at that point, fettuccine with the mushroom cream sauce. My dad went, "Tony, the reward's not the point. The point is Jessica is a young girl, and I don't want her exposed to the media at such a young..." "But is $10,000 per child?" my mom wanted to know. "Or is it just that one child?" "Tawny." "Joe, I'm just saying, $10,000 is nothing to sneeze at. It could buy a new steam table and then some over at Joe Jr.'s. "We'll raise the money for the new steam table over at Joe Jr.'s the old-fashioned way," my father said. "We'll just take out a loan for it." "Not when we're already going to have to take out a loan for Michael's tuition." Michael, whose sole reaction to the news about my newfound psychic ability had been to ask me if I knew where the man in the blue turban, who Nostradamus had predicted would start World War III, was hanging out these days. He rolled his eyes. "Don't you roll your eyes at me, young man," my mother said. "Harvard was very generous with the scholarship money, but it's still not enough." "Especially not," my dad said, dipping his semolina into the cream sauce left on his plate. "If Dougie is going to be back at state..." That did it. My mom dropped her fork with a clatter. "Douglas," she said, "is not going back to that school, not ever." My dad looked tired. "Tawny," he said, "the boy's going to have to get an education. He can't sit in that room up there and read comic books for the rest of his life. People are already starting to call him Boo Radley." Boo Radley, I remembered from freshman English, was the guy in To Kill a Mockingbird who never left his house. Just sat around cutting up newspapers all day, which is what people did before there was TV. It was a good thing Douglas had refused to come downstairs for dinner, or he might have heard that and been offended. For a guy who tried to kill himself, Douglas is very sensitive about being called strange. Why not? My mother demanded. Why can't he sit in his room for the rest of his life? If that's what he wants to do, why can't you just let him? Because nobody gets to do what they want, Tawny. I want to lie in the backyard in a hammock all day, my dad said, jerking a thumb at his chest. Jess over there wants to cruise the countryside on the back of a hog, and Mikey, he looked at Mikey, who was busy chewing. Well, I don't know what the hell Mikey wants to do. Screw Claire Limpton, I suggested, causing Michael to kick me very hard beneath the table. My dad shot me a warning look and continued, but whatever it is, Tawny, he doesn't have to do it. He doesn't get to do it. Nobody gets to do what they want to do, Tony. Wait, is it Tony or Tawny? I was calling her Tawny. I'm going to call her Tony again. What they get to do, what they should do, and what Dougie should do is go back to college. Relieved to have some heat off me, I excused myself and cleared my plate at the table. I hadn't talked to Ruth all day. I was eager to see what she thought of this whole thing. I mean, it isn't every day your best friend ends up on the front page of the local rag. But I never got to find out what Ruth thought of the whole thing, because when I stepped out of the side porch, preparing to jump over the hedge that separated our two houses, I was confronted by what looked like an army of reporters, all of them parked in front of our house and waving cameras and microphones. There she is, one of them, a newscaster that I recognized from Channel 4, came stumbling across my lawn, her high heels sinking into the grass. Jessica, how does it feel to be a national heroine? I stared down at the fuzzy microphone blankly. Then about a million other microphones appeared in my face. Everyone started asking questions at once. It was my mother's press conference, only all I had on was jeans and a t-shirt. I haven't even thought to comb my hair. I said to the microphones. Then my dad was there, yanking me back into the house and yelling at all the reporters to get off his property. No one listened, at least not until the cops came. Then we got to see how all those free lunches my dad had given to the guys on the force paid off. You never saw people as mad as those cops when they turned down Lumley Lane and couldn't even find a place to park. There were so many news vans blocking the way. There are so few crimes in our neck of the woods that when one did happen, our boys in blue would go to town on the offender. When they saw all the reporters on our lawn, they went mental, only in a different way than my mom had. They called back to the station, and the next thing you knew, they had brought out all the fanciest equipment, riot gear, and drug-sniffing dogs, and flash grenades, you name it. They brought it over and looked pretty intent on using it on the reporters, some of whom were from pretty big networks. I have to say, I was way impressed. Mike and I watched the whole thing from my dormier window. Mike even went on the internet and ran a search for my name and said there were already 270 sites that mentioned Jessica Mastroianni. Nobody had taken my face and superimposed it over a Playboy bunny's naked body, but Mike said it was only a matter of time. Then the phones started to ring. The first few calls were from reporters standing outside using their cell phones. They wanted me to come out and make a statement, just one. They promised to leave. But my dad hung up on them. Then people who weren't reporters, but whom we still didn't know, started calling, asking if I was available to help find a missing relative, a child, a husband, a father. At first, my dad was nice to them and told them that it didn't work that way, that I had to see a picture of the missing person. Then they started saying they'd fax a picture or email it, some of them saying they were coming right over with one, that they'd be there in a few hours. That's when my dad had to disconnect the phone. I was a celebrity, or a prisoner in my own house, whichever you prefer. I still hadn't gotten to talk to Ruth, and I really wanted to, but since I couldn't go outside her car, my only resource was to instant message her from Michael's computer. He was feeling sorry for me, so in spite of my crack about Claire Littman, he let me. Ruth, however, wasn't too pleased to hear from me. Ruth, why the hell didn't you tell me any of this? Me. Look, Ruth, I didn't tell anybody, okay? It was all just too weird. Ruth, but I'm supposed to be your best friend. Me. You are my best friend. Ruth, well, I bet you told Rob Wilkins. Me. I swear I didn't. Ruth, oh, right. You didn't tell the guy you're boffing that you're psychic? Yeah, I really believe that one. Me. First of all, I'm not boffing out Rob Wilkins. Second of all, do you really think I want anyone to know about this? It's totally freaky. You know how I like to keep a low profile. Ruth. It was totally uncool of you not to tell me. You know, people from school have been calling me, asking me if I knew, and I had to pretend like I did just to save face. You're the worst best friend I ever had. Me. I'm the only best friend you ever had, and you don't have any right to be mad, since it's all your fault anyways for making me rock in that stupid thunderstorm. Ruth. What are you going to do with the reward money? You know, I could really use a new stereo for the cabaret. And Skip says to tell you that he wants a new Tomb Raider. The new Tomb Raider. Me. Tell Skip I said I'm not buying him anything until he apologizes for that whole strapping my Barbie to a bottle rocket business. Ruth. You know, I don't see how any of us are going to be able to go to school tomorrow. The street is totally blocked. It looks like a scene out of Red Dawn down there. The truth was, Ruth was right. With the cops forming this protective shield in front of my house and our driveway all blockaded, it sort of did look like the Russians were coming or something. No one could get up or down our street without flashing an ID that proved that they lived here to the cops. For instance, if Rob wanted to cruise by on his Indiana, not that he would want to, but let's say he took a wrong turn or whatever, he totally couldn't. The cops wouldn't let him through. I tried not to let this bother me. I logged off with Ruth after assuring her that, although I hadn't told her, I hadn't told anyone else either, which seemed to placate her somewhat, especially after I told her if she wanted to, she could tell everyone she'd already known. I certainly didn't care. This made her very happy, and I suppose after she logged off with me, she logged on with Muffy and Buffy and all the other pathetic, popular kids whose friendship she so assiduously courts for reasons I've never been able to fathom. I took out my flute and practiced for a while, but to tell you the truth, I didn't really put my heart into it. Not because I was thinking about the whole psychic thing. Please, that would make sense. No, in spite of my resolve not to allow them to, my thoughts kept creeping back to Rob. Had he wondered where I was when I didn't show up for detention that afternoon? If he tried calling to find out where I was, he wouldn't be able to get through since my dad had disconnected the phone. Had he seen the paper? He had to have seen the paper, right? I mean, you would think by now that he'd know I'd be touched by the finger of God. He might want to talk to me, right? You would think that, but I guess not. Because even though I listened for it, I never did hear the purr of that Indian. And I don't think it was because the cops wouldn't let him through the blockade. I don't think he even tried. So much for unrequited love. What is wrong with guys anyways?